setting goals is easy. Make sure you're setting the right goals and then prioritizing the right goals, right? Because sometimes you brain dump on the page and you're like, okay, all of this stuff is really good, but what's supposed to get done first, right? And until you prioritize those things into a way that you can do them consistently, that's where the success is going to come.
Stephen has been on our show before, so welcome back. We're so glad to have you. Stephen is the managing partner of Integrity Holdings Group. He has flipped nearly 1,000 houses and now has over 150 million assets under management. So hashtag goals. There you go, right there. So take it away. I want to hear about this.
Yeah, so you don't get to that without setting goals.
We've set a few.
Yeah, going forward, but for this year, and I know you have some big ones. What are your goals?
Yeah, so we're gonna put $50 million to work this year in $200 million of acquisitions. So we're hopefully doubling the volume that we've been able to accomplish over the last 3 years in the next 12 months. So we're excited. We're hiring. We have some key metrics for people that we're hiring. So adding to the team, expanding, and then just getting out, telling the story. We're launching a fund this month where, now we're going to be basically fund managers instead of investing deal by deal. So our investors can diversify. But so that's the number goal, right? So we're adding 2 people to the team. Hopefully we're shooting for $200 million. But I know you keep bringing it back to the why, right? So what is the why? The why is to give $1 million away to the nonprofits that we support through our fund this year.
Mm-hmm. You were the mysterious person I was talking about earlier, planting that $1 billion bug in my head, which when you first said that, it's such a huge number. It's like, I don't even know if Grant Cardone has that. Maybe he does.
He does now.
Yeah, he might now. But clearly he's got a pretty big runway and had a track record before that. And then we start talking with like you talking about $1 billion as a fairly new venture. I say fairly new because you've been in the real estate game for a long time, with a lot of success. But commercial real estate, multifamily real estate, it's fairly new. The last 5 years, 3 years, something like that.
Just 3.5 years.
Yeah. So that's a huge goal for you. I'm really curious of when that goal, before it made it onto paper. Because it made it unfair to me, but it took a process in my head to let it sink in and come to terms with it.
Yeah.
Well, how was that for you? Like before that ever made it on paper?
Yeah. People kept asking us like, when's enough? Like how many assets do you think you'll get to before you'll just be done? And, it's interesting because if we back out our giving goals, right? Our BHAG, right? Our company-wide BHAG is to give 80% of our profits to nonprofits, right? So we want to do 80-20, meaning if you make $100 million, you're going to give $80 million away. So we just backed out the numbers, right? It was like, well, where do we need to get to legitimately be able to give 80% away based on a bunch of different metrics?
Mm-hmm.
And it was scary, right? I like to scare myself with goals. You and I are similar in the fact that we are the visionary, right? Where it's more about what, not necessarily how, right? So Jamie is more the how. I have COOs in our team that help us with the how. And, so we focus on the vision. They focus on the how do we get there? But yeah, $1 billion under management, we started doing 30, 40, $50 million projects. And I recognized that, hey, if we do 4 or 5 of these a year, in 3 years, we'll have $1 billion under management, right? Between 3 and 4 years. So it was exciting. We get excited about big goals.
Yeah. I know before I ever even got into that, before I started venturing into the commercial or multifamily space, for me, it was like, man, I'm already doing a lot of work. You know how much work it is flipping a house, flipping a single house. And then it progressively got, more, harder as, the market matured and more competition, low inventory, all that other stuff. So, and it's not any different in multifamily. They get, there's low inventory in multifamily too. It's just, if I'm going to work hard, just want to have more doors. But at that point, I can now actually start like the bigger numbers make sense. Like $1 billion with single family homes. Like, I don't even, I mean, I guess if you're going to do a Blackstone, but then you have to wait for a 2008 to happen again. And
Yeah.
who knows when that'll be. But in any case,
Yeah.
what do you do to keep track of that? So just this year, I'm just talking on a yearly point, but it's the same thing on a 3-year or 10-year metric. But what do you do to make sure that you're on track to hit your goals at the end of the year? You're not meaninglessly like wandering along knee deep in the trenches, and then wake up and it's December.
Yeah. Hope is not a strategy, right?
No.
So it's it takes a lot of thought. It takes a lot of quiet time with a pen and paper and thinking through. Okay, here's our yearly goal. Break it down into quarters. Quarters go into months, right? And then you have biweekly just kind of metrics that you're trying to hit to accomplish those goals. So it's how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time. You make sure that you chunk it down. We have a 9 o'clock meeting with our team every single morning to go over whether we're on or off track for our goals. And only one of the 8 goals that we talk about is a professional goal, right? So we have 8 different topics that we talk about. And, there's personal development, there's mindset stuff, there's community and connection stuff, there's, and then, there's a professional growth there. So there's every day we do a 30-minute check-in or 10-minute check-in with the whole team where it's just on track, off track, right? And then every Monday we run L10 meetings still. You mentioned EOS a couple times. I'm actually reading Building an Elite Organization by Don Wenner. Don created the EES system. It's a little bit different than EOS. And that's the system that we're running now. And
I'm reading that. I haven't finished it, but I'm reading that too.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're just trying to create an amalgamation of the best of the best. Don, unlike Gino, actually runs a business, right? Gino has books, but I don't think he's an entrepreneur that's done a couple $1 billion of growth. So Don has it from a different perspective. So that's really what we do. We do our L10 meetings. We're making sure that we're tracking KPIs. We're doing scorecard metrics, and we're keeping our team accountable so that everybody's rowing in the same direction.
So you mentioned the daily huddle, which is something that several other guests mentioned. And then you have a specific, that has an agenda too. Is that when you're talking about on track, off track for those daily huddles, is it on track of the quarterly or is it on track more for a weekly?
Daily.
So
daily. So we'll do a 30-day metric, right? So we have 30-day, 6-month, and 1-year goals attached to this spreadsheet. And then for that goal, like if my goal is to get to the gym 5 days a week, right? Then every day we just come on and we say we're on track or off track of that goal. If we're off track, right? Like if everybody's on track for 30 days, we'll have a prize at the end for the whole team, right? Okay. So it's just this internal accountability of like, don't go off track because, and life gets in the way sometimes and, but it just keeps you accountable with this social pressure.
Yeah. I like that. It's a good way to run it. Any final thoughts for folks that are maybe still fine tuning their goals for this year, but not necessarily the fine tunings. I think a lot of people setting goals is easy. Anyone can say what they're going to do. Doing it's harder. So any thoughts on the productivity and actually staying on track tips, so they make sure that in December, if it was going to the gym, they're still going to the gym, or they're still like making phone calls to get that last deal that they need.
Yeah. I mean, Don talks about this in his book. It's the 20-mile march, right? And there's this story about these guys going to the South Pole, and there's 2 groups, and one, they marched as far as they could during good weather days and hunkered down on bad weather days. And the other team decided they were going to do 20 miles every single day, regardless of weather or how they felt or anything, right? And it's that level of consistency that got them there. And that was the only group that got out alive. The other group died. All the explorers were lost during this trek. And now we're starting to apply some of that stuff. So where do you need consistency? How do you get those how do you get that consistency in your business or in your personal life, whatever it is? And for us, it's just trying to simplify, right? I think complicated is what gets lost. I think simplified is is easy to maintain. And there's this inverse relationship between clarity and stress. As your clarity goes down, you don't know what you're supposed to do. Your stress levels go up and vice versa. So, even my wife and I, every Friday we'll sit down, we'll meet after the kids go to bed, and we say, okay, what's our top 3 priorities for this week? One for the marriage, one for the kids, and the other for like a house or a project thing that we want to do. Right. And those are just, and then we just agree on what that priority is going to be for that week. And then we go after it and make sure that we're doing it. So I think setting goals is easy. Make sure you're setting the right goals and then prioritizing the right goals, right? Because sometimes, you brain dump on the page and you're like, okay, all of this stuff is really good, but what's supposed to get done first, right? And until you prioritize those things into a way that you can do them consistently, that's where the success is going to come from.
Love it. Love it. And then adding to what you said before, having that prize, small little trinkets, it's amazing what that does emotionally for you. And we did that early on. We'd sell a house. We didn't buy the Range Rover, but we bought we have like a mini Starbucks machine. Not bad after $100,000 payday. And then the next one, we just went out to a really fancy dinner and spent money we'd never would spend on a dinner. But and then the rest was reinvested. So yeah, having those little small prizes, maybe it's taking a day off. Maybe it's, I don't know.
Yeah. Celebrate the wins. It's important, right?
Yeah.
Because it's not, what else are we doing it for, right? It's fun to celebrate the wins. I love closing these big deals with a bunch of partners and then, getting together and celebrating. And, it's not supposed to be drudgery. If your goals are drudgery, you probably won't.
Yeah. Enjoy the process. Enjoy the process.
Enjoy it.
Appreciate it. Well, thanks, Stephen. Look forward to having you on. And I know we'll chat again soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris.